It seemed to me when I was recently in Australia that this was a policy that had support across the political spectrum.
Well, good evening. It's lovely to be with you here today, Nigel. And I can safely say that Australians are breathing a sigh of relief because it's the first time that our Prime Minister has actually made use of one of his numerous overseas trips. So we were very grateful to see him using his carbon credits to our advantage and signing this very important deal with both the UK and America. And really, it feels like coming home. Australians have this deep connection between the UK and the US that cannot be broken. It's basically a family bond. And so this Aukus deal makes perfect sense. And quite frankly, it's not even a product of the current political leaders of the day. It's not a reflection of their negotiating skills. This had to happen because the rise of China, an authoritarian communist force, had to be dealt with. And the only way to do that is to form a strong alliance to protect the Pacific.
Well, I agree with you, Alexandra, absolutely on that. And I'm very pleased that Brexit Britain is now able to reconnect with our friends, indeed our kith and kin, frankly, in Australia. And boy, I can't wait for the cricket between us this summer, a separate issue. I agree. But this deal has not been met with universal praise. You see, the Chinese say that this involves the use of weapons-grade uranium and threatens treaties that exist on nuclear weapons. What would you say to the Chinese?
It's a little bit hypocritical of China after building up the largest navy in the world, mind you, not the most powerful navy, and in possession of plenty of nuclear submarines of their own and nuclear power plants, to come at us and say, how dare Australia seek to defend the Pacific and itself. So China loves to screech and scream about these things, but the point is, they started the game, and so they can't expect other nations to sit around and do nothing while they stretch their limbs with their Pacific friends. It hasn't been all, love and roses and hugs. Ask Taiwan and Japan how they feel about China's behaviour. And so Australia had no choice, and it doesn't threaten the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty because we're not building or housing weapons-grade uranium in Australia. That's happening in the UK and US. It's not happening here. We don't even have a nuclear power plant capable of producing power.
No, I know. I mean, the extent to which Australia has turned its back on the production of uranium and using nuclear power has amazed me on my visits, but there we are. But you see, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of the Russian Federation, and it's worrying, isn't it, how close it seems that China and Russia are now becoming. He says this action could lead to years of confrontation.
Well, the only parties that are seeking confrontation are China and Russia. Australia is not seeking to invade anybody. We're quite peaceful down on our little island. We'd rather trade with China, which we have proved over the decades, making them our largest trading partner. And indeed, there are figures in Australian politics who would rather we didn't create a military arrangement, but they think that trade will protect them from conflict. But the lesson of the last two world wars is that your biggest trading partners, that it does not protect you from conflict with them. And so we have to remember that with China, that if push comes to shove, our trade relation is not going to be the buffer that we hope it is as far as our actual protection of our nation. So, you know what, they can hate it, but there's not really any geopolitical choice here on the market.